Statistics and dot plots. What is statistics? Statistics is the science, the math of collecting, organizing, analyzing, and interpreting data. We use it to find answers to things that don't have one single answer. To do this, we use statistical questions. Statistical questions do not give you one single answer most of the time, but they give you a variety of answers so you can see a direction or a tendency in the data. One of our tools when we're doing statistics is dot plots. And dot plots show you how many times something happens. So in this case, if I interviewed the students in my homeroom class and asked them how many siblings they have, we can see there were 3 students that had 0 siblings. We had 5 students who had 1 sibling, and there were 3 students that had 2 siblings, and there were no students that had 3 siblings. The cool thing about this is then we can see that very easily and quickly that most students had only 1 sibling. Let's try and make our own dot plot. This one's about Malia's quiz scores. So we want to display this data in a dot plot. The first thing you do is you need to make a number line. So you look at the numbers that are in it, and we go all the way from 3 up to 10. So we need to have a number line that includes those numbers and the numbers in between. And then we need to go through the data, and we're going to put a dot for each number. So I have a 7, so I put a dot directly above it. I have a 3, so I put a dot above that one. I have a 9, so I put a dot above it. 10, then looks like she got 1, 2, 3 8s. So we put the first one, and then directly above it you put the second one, and then above that one you put the third one. So we've finished the 8s, and now we have 9. And we want to make sure that we kind of keep everything the same level so that it makes it easy to compare. So you can see that for the most part all my first dots are on the same level. Now the 9 needs another one, so it should be on the same level as the second one for the 8 so that we can compare it. Alright, so here we have the quiz scores for Malia. You can see that most of her quiz scores are pretty good. They go from 7 to 10. She did have one bad one way down here, and there's a gap in between all of those data points and that one. All these data points that are together are called a cluster. And which one did she have the most? Well, it's pretty easy to see. That was the 8. It has a higher stack of data points. And because it's the highest, it's called the peak. So clusters are a group of points. The peak is going to be a high point in the data. And then a gap is going to be a hole in between data points. Alright, the following dot plot shows how many fouls Jamar had per game in basketball this season. Identify a cluster, peak, and gap in Jamar's foul data. So why don't you give that a shot. Pause the video, see if you can find them. Alright, so hopefully you can see that right here there's a large gap in the data. He must not have had a very good game that day. He had 6 fouls. We can see that there is a cluster, a large cluster of data right here. And he peaked. He had mostly games of 1 or 2 fouls. Now, using this information and using this dot plot, if you had to guess how many fouls Jamar will have next game, how many would you guess and why? Well, personally, I would probably guess that he's going to have 1 or 2 fouls because we have lots of data in this area. It peaked here, and so that is why I think he would have about 1 or 2 fouls in his next game. The following dot plot shows LeBron James' assists per game in the 2014 NBA playoffs so far. Identify a cluster, peak, and gap in LeBron's assist data. Pause the video, give it a try. Alright, so they're not too big, but there's a couple little gaps right here. The biggest cluster we seem to have is right here in the middle, so around 5 and 6. And then he has a peak right here at 5. 5 is the most common number of assists that he's had in the playoffs so far. So if I had to guess how many assists LeBron will have in his next game, I would probably guess that he's going to have 5 because it's in the middle of all the other data points. It's the highest and it's in a pretty good cluster right here. So I'm going to guess that he's going to get about 5 in his next game.